They chase down the toughest criminals on the streets. We'll introduce you to the PIT team
that will come after them if they mess up.
Learn how cops stay fit and meet the man who keeps them moving. And how is a soldier like an officer? We'll tell you coming up. Hello and welcome to City Beat, brought to you by the Sacramento Police Department. I'm Kristen Samos. On today's City Beat, we'll introduce you to a group of crime fighters who keep tabs on those who have committed crimes and are now back on the streets. Plus, it's a tough job and a physical one. We'll show you the department's secret weapon in the fight against fat. And what do the military and police force have in common? We'll tell you. But first, the PIT team. The Parole Intervention, or PIT team as they're called, was an idea borrowed from the Oakland Police Department and tailored to Sacramento. The police department initiated the idea to join forces with the Department of Corrections in an effort to supervise parolees. Approximately 60 parolees get out of prison each week in Sacramento County, men and women who have spent months, sometimes years, behind bars. The Parole Intervention Team was started in 2000 as a way to give parolees options so they don't reoffend, and a way to keep track of them if they do.
The goal is to reduce the recidivism rate, and that's state parole's goal. Our goal is to assist parole in that transition from the parolees coming out of prison to the streets.
These days, Sergeant Michael Carrasco heads up the PIT team. His crew, along with the Department of Corrections, put on these weekly orientation meetings for the parolees who have been released from prison over the past week.
I hope you guys take advantage of all the opportunities over here, and I wish you good luck out there.
Carrasco says a big part of his team's job is to know who the parolees are and where they'll be spending time from the moment they walk out of prison.
And our role here is kind of a meet and greet fashion to talk to the parolees. We're also there, we interview them, we talk to them also about, what job prospects you have, are you really looking, and it's an opportunity for the parolees to, really grab a hold of an opportunity here and change their life.
With help from community agencies, this weekly orientation also gives parolees the 5 tools cops say are needed to successfully re-enter society.
A livable wage, a place to live, transportation, something to deal with their antisocial behaviors, and food.
We help you find a job. We got resources to help you find a job. We can't get you a job. You're the one that got to get the job.
Parolees are offered services like drug counseling, help finding housing or a job, even medical assistance.
So what you need is to come in and get a viral load test and a biopsy.
Harley Miracle helps parolees deal with health care issues, HIV testing, and prevention. It's information and resources that he knows parolees otherwise wouldn't have.
I want to be here because I've been on parole 14 years, and we didn't have anything like this, and I'm dedicated to change.
Sometimes I come here and I don't reach nobody, and that's cool because I reach me. Because I get to look at you and remind myself of what it was like to sit on that side of the table.
Parolees also hear from a motivational speaker, someone who has been in their shoes and has gone on to make the right decisions. Manny Villalobos says for him it took many arrests and decades behind bars before he decided to make a change.
I did a lot of time, so I've been out for like 7 years, and this is what I do. I come back and try to give back to these people what I got from someone else.
Shanta Johnson says it gives her hope that she'll be able to get back on her feet and stay out of trouble.
I think it's a good thing. I think it's going to help people more function out in society better as far as being a parolee, give them more options.
I think it's wonderful. I think it helps, and gives people to get out with nothing, the opportunity to have something and to get things in order and just to keep yourself out of prison.
Dante West rode out the last 2.5 years in prison on burglary charges. He says he's lucky to have a job already lined up, but many of these people are released only to find they have no family or friends, nowhere to go, and an addiction they can't seem to kick. Cops say that's almost a sure ticket back to prison.
quite often they get put back into the same society that they were arrested in, out of, the same communities, the same friends, the same drug-using friends that they were arrested with in the first time. It's hard. It's a hard thing to be on parole and be put right back into where they came from. Reality is a lot of them get rearrested quickly.
Which brings us to the second component of the pit team, the street side. After the orientation, this crew hits the streets, protecting the public by chasing down parolees who have violated their conditions of their parole, often by committing another crime. They're now considered parolees at large.
The parolees that live in the city and the county know that we have teams like this that will come after them if they mess up.
We've got some info on a parolee at large, and we're going to go meet up with some detectives, with SAC detectives. We'll have a little briefing, and then we'll probably be going to hit a house.
On this particular Tuesday, within an hour, the pit team had 2 offenders in their back seat, including Mitchell Jones, who broke the rules of parole simply by showing up at orientation intoxicated.
Well, I've only been out a week. I got a drinking problem. Came down there to the orientation, drinking, they smelled alcohol, and that's it.
Jones was an easy one. He came to them, but it usually works more like this. Darren MacArthur was found with 3 different IDs, none of them his own, and a pocket full of receipts, something parole agents and cops have seen before, and it's enough to land him back behind bars.
I didn't know it was taken that serious,
But next time he will. These are hardcore criminals, sometimes murderers, who are desperate to maintain their freedom. A desperation that resulted in the killing of Officer Bill Bean, a colleague and a friend to Sergeant Wagstaff. Bean's death motivated Wagstaff to co-create a program that is now a model for the state.
Bill's always kind of been looking over my shoulder through this whole thing and guiding me. There were several times that people wanted to walk away from this program. A door was shut. A school didn't want to participate. The school district said no. And miraculously, all of a sudden, things would come about. And doors would open, and people wanted to listen. And I was able to spend a year in parole headquarters as a law enforcement liaison, overseeing this model statewide.
And for those who work on the streets, chasing the men and women who reoffend, the desperation is seen daily.
They rob, they steal, they do what they can to get money in their pocket, to live another day, to find a roof.
They also admit that providing the right tools and keeping tabs on a parolee's progress will give people like Dante West a second chance he may otherwise not have had. The chance and the choice to make a change. The good news, since the pit team has started, the parolee at large rate has dropped. And just as noteworthy, the criminals who are back on the streets now know they have options to help them not reoffend. And they know who will come after them if they do.
All we hear is a double time.
The Sacramento Police Department, like the military, is always looking for a few good men and women. And like the military, police department recruits go through rigorous testing and training before becoming sworn officers. But many are already familiar with the physical and psychological requirements before becoming a police officer. That's because they bring with them the skills and experience they received from Uncle Sam. The United States' ongoing military role in Afghanistan and Iraq has focused new attention on America's commitment to service, both to the country and the community. More than combat, it's the service of assisting locals in foreign lands to find freedom and hope as they look towards the future. That commitment and desire to serve draws many veterans to a career within the ranks of the Sacramento Police Department. For them, interacting with the community is not only vital in their work, it's the most rewarding part. Sacramento Police Sergeant Kathy Lester knows about that service. Both of her parents served in the U.S. Army. Her dad later working as a deputy in Placer County.
I think by having that experience and that outlook on life when you come out of the military, it's only natural to come into this job as a police officer because you feel like it's really your responsibility, almost a calling to protect those rights. Whether you do it for the citizens of this country or the citizens of your own community, it's just as important.
Sergeant Lester joined the Army right out of high school. After basic training, she was assigned to language school in Monterey, California. ultimately serving as a translator in critical postings in Korea and Japan. She joined the Sacramento Police Department as a dispatcher, then community service officer, before being sworn in as a police officer in January of 1996.
My attitude for police work does transfer back to the military directly, because you have a lot of discipline when you come out of the military if you've been successful there, and that parlays directly into police work, whether it's in training or whether it's discipline when it comes to making arrests, whether it's self-discipline to know what you can and what you can't do and how important it is to protect people's rights.
Kathy Lester earned her sergeant stripes in 2001 after serving as a patrol officer. Her work in the community has convinced her that the communication skills she honed in the military have served her well in civilian life. She contends that soldiers now in the military, looking for a career out of the service, should consider law enforcement.
We've noticed that people that come from the military into our training programs tend to do much better because they're familiar with chain of command, they're familiar with following orders, they understand that they need to work hard to succeed, that they need to have self-initiative, because that's also very important as a police officer. We don't necessarily just wait for the calls to come to us, you're out there to solve crime.
That's a sentiment echoed by Officer Robert Mueller. He says community involvement is a major component of police work. Knowing the people with whom you work and those you come in contact with daily. Skills he developed while serving in the U.S. Army.
The citizens that you work for look up to you, and they look to you to do the right thing.
Robert Mueller joined the Army in 1987 and served the majority of his active duty time as a military police officer. 9 years later, he became a Sacramento police officer, and at the same time continued his military service in the Army National Guard. Called up again in 2003, his California National Guard MP unit saw duty in Kuwait, then in Iraq.
We were faced with combat situations where you had to make a quick decision, and based on your training and experience, you had to trust that you were going to make the right decision. I applied a lot of the knowledge that I learned in the police department to dealing with the non-combatants in Iraq. And at the same time, you know, things that I learned there, I've applied here. So it's gone both ways.
Some of those skills learned in the military are directly applied to a follow-up career in law enforcement. Military pilots from all branches of the service use their experience for patrolling by air. Police helicopters direct pursuits, handle traffic oversight, and assist fellow officers on the ground. Extensive military training with explosives, especially in areas vulnerable to terrorism, is similar to those skills used by Sacramento police officers in the explosive ordnance detail. In a community bordered by two major rivers, water patrol skills acquired in the military can translate to search and rescue operations on the home front. And canine units are used in the military and the police department for both patrol and search and rescue missions. Advanced technology skills are critical to both the modern military and today's police department. Squad cars are now equipped with state-of-the-art mobile data systems. But far beyond specific skills, the military experience can give prospective police officers other advantages.
It was an education that I believe that was probably a little more valuable to me than just sitting in a college classroom, because I got so much more of a dimension. And I learned so much faster. I learned street smarts, I learned common sense.
Officer Michelle Lazark works in the Public Information Office for the Sacramento Police Department. She joined the U.S. Army just out of high school, was stationed in Germany, and after leaving active service, ultimately attained the rank of captain in the U.S. Army Reserves. She says her military service was beneficial to both her growth and attitude, attributes she uses in her contact with the public.
It taught me not to judge people, because there's that old adage, you never know until you walk in someone's shoes. It's so true, and you know, everybody carries hurt and baggage and their own experiences with them, and you just can't judge somebody. And that's one thing I use in law enforcement all the time.
Having a military background is a plus, because the military does train the individuals to carry out certain duties and to understand the rank system understand how orders are given out, and understand what it's like to do a specific job, do it well, and take pride in that job.
Recruitment officer Chris Trim will tell you that having a military background maintains the high standard for the Sacramento Police Department. Education is not only encouraged, but required at SPD. Among other criteria, to become a police officer, candidates must have 60 semester or 90 quarter units from an accredited college or university. Military service often delivers that chance to take college courses while on active or reserve duty. Officer Bill Wan works in the Professional Standards Division and came to law enforcement from the Marine Corps.
The reason I'm good at what I do now is the attention to detail I learned in the Marine Corps. Because I just make sure that the products I put out, especially in policy writing, are complete and accurate. And I don't know if I would have had that if I hadn't been in the Marine Corps first.
Corporal Dee Tyndale joins her fellow veterans in encouraging those in the military to consider a career in law enforcement. She compares her training as a soldier to her duties as a peace officer.
The training that I had in the military was directly related to the things I do now.
Like many others, Dee Tyndale joined the service right out of high school, training to become an Army MP stationed in Europe. Today she works in the department's Background and Recruitment Unit. She, like the other officers we talked with, says a career in law enforcement can be a rewarding follow-up to service in the military. And she suggests those in the military now should do some homework.
If they're interested in law enforcement, they need to get out, see it, touch it, and talk to people. Our ride-along programs are outstanding. It's a wonderful opportunity to see how it works in civilian life as opposed to the military. We have workshops. Our internet site is outstanding for information on our units, our specialty assignments, and things that might allow them to expand on their military experience that they had in the military and translate it into the community.
I wanted to do something important. I wanted to do something that was going to have meaning in people's lives other than just going to work and doing my 9-to-5 job and going home. I feel like that police work has got a lot of importance in our society, and I think the military helped make me understand that it is important to do something that's worthwhile.
Check out the police department's website at sacpd.org. There you can find out about current positions on the Sacramento Police Department, including cadet programs, recruiting standards, the police academy, and specialized units within the department itself. That's sacpd.org. I'm sure you've heard the joke about cops and donut shops. Well, these days, things are a little different. Police departments have discovered that a fit officer is a healthy one, and that means fewer on-the-job injuries and more people on the streets. When it comes to making health a priority, the Sacramento Police Department has become a leader. Here's how. On this Saturday afternoon, a team of Sacramento police officers have traded their regular uniforms for these. When it comes to playing games, the department believes it's not just about having fun, it's about staying in shape for the job.
Well, it definitely helps because obviously, you know, when you're on the streets as a police officer, you have to react at a moment's notice. So you got to be in shape because you're sitting down for a long period of time, and then all of a sudden, boom, you got to spring into action. So you have to be in shape. I mean, it's just the job calls for it.
In a day's work, an officer might have to chase a criminal, scale a wall, duck, bend, or fight back on a moment's notice. It makes sense that they'd need to stay fit just to get the job done. But you'd be amazed at some of the clever ways they're doing so. At the Western States Police and Fire Games, Sacramento officers were represented in at least 6 sports. In fact, the Sac PD soccer team took the gold. This is Baker to Vegas, the largest law enforcement relay race in the nation. Sac PD had 3 teams taking part. Outside of law enforcement games, employees stay fit by running marathons, powerlifting, and even competing in endurance horse racing. This student trainee is a 10-time national junior judo champ. According to the police chief himself, staying in shape isn't a luxury, it's a necessity.
It's really important for us to really encourage the physical fitness of all of our employees, obviously especially the public safety officers, but all of our employees staying in good shape really helps us. It helps everybody. It helps them, it helps the community.
It's something the police department has believed for years. They work hard and play hard knowing the two really do complement each other. Perhaps the oldest police department sports tradition, the Pig Bowl, where officers squared off on the football field against sheriff's deputies. These days, they compete against firefighters. Think it's too much roughhousing? Well, just think about the job and the need for an officer on any given day to handle any situation.
Sometimes being a police officer involves conflict, and sometimes conflict causes you to have to get into physical fights with people, and you have to be able to control yourself and win the fight at the same time and not get injured in the process.
Aside from being fit enough to handle the so-called bad guys, statistics show an unhealthy officer is more likely to get injured and take time off from work. That's why instead of fearing their employees might get hurt playing a sport, top cops encourage the participation and have gone one step farther. Enter John Hansen, the man they've hired to keep an eye on their waistlines.
What I do with officers is almost like an insurance policy. I will work with you and keep you in good shape so the time that you do go from 0 to 100 miles an hour with your body, that your body can handle that and make that adaptation quickly.
He's a fitness consultant, triathlon coach, and personal trainer for the Sacramento Police Department. And in the few years since he's been working for Sac PD, he's helped countless employees become healthier. Sergeant Chris Taylor, a former bicycle racer, military man, and athlete, went to Hansen a few years ago to get back in shape after taking time off from the gym.
And I said my goal is not to go backward. And he set up a program so that I just didn't gain any weight and I was able to work out every single day without getting hurt or getting overtired, because at the time with two small sons we were only sleeping a couple hours in a stretch at night.
And whether the constraints come from home or the unusual schedules they face, many officers admit the biggest obstacle to staying fit is finding the time and the resources.
I work graveyards, or the early shift, or first watch as they call it, and it's from 9 p.m. until 7 in the morning. With that shift, it's just, I guess, a little harder to work out and get to the gym. Sometimes you can force it in right when you get off early in the morning.
It's also hard for Officer Davis to make healthy food choices when he's out in his patrol car. Lunch break falls somewhere around 2 a.m. when only convenience stores, oh yeah, and donut shops are open.
You want to focus on getting whole grains, fruits and vegetables.
What John Hansen does is provide officers with knowledge, including an outline of their goals, their problem areas, and the solution. He conducts monthly seminars, like this one focused on healthy eating. It's great information even for those who are already healthy, says Lieutenant Jackie Dowden, whose husband is also a retired police officer.
I've been an avid exerciser for many years, but there's some information. It's always good to talk about it, listen to it, find out some new things that are in the field. There's some interest on my own part with regard to heart disease since my husband had a heart attack.
To top it off, when you consider that an officer carries an estimated 30 pounds of gear, the term workload takes on new meaning. According to Chief Nahara, the reason they lean on trainer John Hansen and on outside sports is no game. He's seen over the years how the department and the city ends up the winner.
We've seen a dramatic decrease in sick leave usage and workers' comp costs. So it's good for everybody when this stuff happens. Plus, it's good for the image of the organization as well.
Oh, and one more reason why a little baseball might be good for job performance. It's called teamwork.
This is one example of being part of a team and that team concept, and which is fundamental to your survival out there.
Thanks, Detective Mouses, for taking this one for the team. Since John Hansen has been working with the Sacramento Police Department, he's helped more than 300 employees lose weight and gain knowledge, confidence, and strength. On this next segment of City Beat, we feature an employee of the Sacramento Police Department who goes above and beyond the call of duty. This month, we're talking about Shonda Davis, who, aside from being a police officer, is one of 2 teachers here at Grant High School who helps to lead an on-campus police academy. She also knows firsthand that sometimes all a kid needs is someone to point them in the right direction.
Who else is struggling in some subjects? In the academy program, we have the ranking officer. There's an academy captain. There are lieutenants, sergeants, and corporals.
Just like the real thing, this high school police academy puts students in the ranks and teaches them valuable skills for a career in law enforcement.
So many kids in this area have such a small idea of what life has for them, what the types of jobs are out there. Part of this program is to show them the wide range.
It's okay to struggle with a subject. You just have to find those resources out there to help you to be a better student. I graduated from this district, and I look at the resources that are in the community, and those are resources that I didn't have. I didn't have access to those resources.
To motivate me, she tells me about like everything that she's done, and then she's just the really cool teacher.
Part of what makes Shonda Davis such a cool teacher is her dedication to improving students' lives. In this case, she's up at 5 a.m. at a police department briefing to talk to crews about her program and to give them a chance to get involved.
And also to ask the officers and the CSOs and the sergeants if they would consider being a mentor in our criminal justice program to a student in our program.
The program, the academy, it's been great. I like it because I was thinking of going into law enforcement.
Officer Davis, her being a police officer, that gives us a perspective as to what it's really like to be out there, to be around people who aren't as morally just as everyone would hope, and how it is to, you know, feel the accomplishment of, you know, knowing those people are behind bars.
Here's a gift.
Part of what Davis strives to do is show her students the positives when it comes to law enforcement. She says for many students, their contact with cops has been under unpleasant circumstances.
And for those of you that just have the slightest bit of desire to do anything in which you have to be a leader, you have to decide what it is that you want to do and how hard you're willing to work.
She's an example in many different ways, in her attitude, in the style that she shows them, and in her tenacity and showing that, yeah, you can do it, but you have to work.
Officer Davis has opened opportunities for myself and many other students in the academy.
When they can come back and tell their success stories and want to tell the other classmates, the other academy class, then that makes me feel that my work here has not been in vain.
Officer Davis also gets students involved by taking them to community events and fundraisers, and by showing them there's a bigger world out there with more opportunity than they ever might have imagined. That's all for this edition of City Beat. I'm Kristen Samos. On behalf of the Sacramento Police Department, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.